What is up, everybody? Welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. As always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And of course, there's plenty to talk about here going into this Week 10 matchup between the Niners and the Rams. It is an awesome, beautiful Thursday, November 6th. And I'm ready to talk Niners with all of the faithful. So here's everything that's coming up here on the show. Latest Niners news. We're going to take a look at the top free agent targets for San Francisco. Players who the Niners could add to their roster following the NFL trade deadline. Obviously, that's pretty timely right there. I'm going to do a segment and explain why I'm mad at the 49ers. We'll do a mailbag, get those questions in starting right now. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat, and then we'll round out with a Niners-Rams preview. Big game coming up here in the NFC West on Sunday. A lot of you are wondering, Chase, why didn't the 49ers make a move at the NFL trade deadline? Well, John Lynch, the general manager who makes the moves for San Francisco, was asked about that this morning on KNBR. Here's what he said. We're top 4 in the NFL in trades made this year. We did a lot to improve our team, and we had conversations until the end. We weren't going to make an overpayment. We weren't going to get fleeced. We weren't going to overpay. And I understand where John Lynch is coming from. My only issue with that, if the Niners came out of that Giants game with the healthy Mykel Williams, and in the lead up to that game, they added Cleveland Ferrell and Keion White, I'd be fine with that Niners edge rusher rotation for the rest of the year because you'd have Mykel Williams, Bryce Huff once he came back, Cleveland Ferrell, Keion White, Sam Okuwanu, and if Yetur Gross-Matos is ever able to stay healthy, then you would have him in the mix as well. But Mykel Williams got hurt. And after that Keion White trade as well, you had to put Yetur Gross-Matos on injured reserve. So right now you have one of the thinnest edge rusher, pass rushing rotations in the National Football League. I wasn't asking for San Francisco to make a superstar trade and give up a first-round pick. But you could have given up a second-round pick, a third-round pick. You could have given up a conditional fifth-round pick. You could have given up a future pick for a player who can help you this year and a player who can also help you in the future. Obviously, it always takes 2 to tango, but I think the Niners should have been more aggressive. As for some Niners injury news here, Lynch also talking about the status of quarterback Brock Purdy. He's starting to do more this week, ramp up a little bit. Hopefully he gets some more reps with the ones. I don't think he's going to play against the Rams on Sunday, though. Here's what the general manager said about the QB1. The progression is continuing. The last couple of weeks, he's been out on the practice field, and we try to keep giving him more. He's making progress. Turf toe is a tough injury. We'll evaluate him at the end of the week. It kind of seems as though we've just been in this spot with Purdy over the last couple of weeks that he's managing this injury, and we have no idea when he's going to come back. And it's definitely a complex, very difficult injury. There's a high risk of re-aggravation as well if Purdy plants or tries to drive a throw or he's running around. That turf toe could give out at any point. It's also important to remember he got hurt week 1, right? Came back in week 4, premature. Niners didn't have a lot of discipline in that regard. Joe Burrow suffered a worse turf toe injury, and he's out until December. So that goes to show you the complex nature of that injury. As far as Brandon Ayuk, Kyle Shanahan said something very interesting yesterday that he thinks he's going to be able to come back at some point. John Lynch said today, we're getting close to opening up Brandon Ayuk's practice window. Once that happens, he's eligible to return, but the Niners have to activate him to the active roster within 3 weeks. What the Niners are doing right now, they're waiting for Ayuk to reach some GPS metrics that he reached pre-injury so that they can kind of gauge how close he is to where he was prior to that injury. So some good news there, I guess, but like Purdy, will continue to wait and see. For Bryce Huff, returning to Niners practice today, and obviously that's going to do a lot for this Niners pass rush. I thought they did a solid job against Jackson Dart last week. I was impressed with what I saw from Keion White, especially at defensive tackle. Cleveland Ferrell had a good hustle sack. Sam Okuwanu is a grinder. He's a solid player. To get Bryce Huff back, he's by far the most proven pass rusher that the Niners have and the best pass rusher that they have on this team. Now, up on the channel about an hour ago, I put together my Niners-Rams preview. That video is up. We're also going to play it at the end of the live show. Hang out here, and you can just watch that a little bit later, or you can watch it a little bit later as well because it's already up on the channel. But real quick, here are my 5 keys to the game for the Niners to beat the Los Angeles Rams. And I see a couple of $2 super chats coming in, especially from Spunky Guy. If the Niners don't get a pass rush going, no bueno. Matthew Stafford this year is playing like an MVP. He has 21 touchdowns and 2 picks this season. He's been awesome. The Rams, everybody thinks of them as a high-octane offense because of Stafford, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, and Sean McVay. They have prioritized the offensive line the last couple of years, something that I wish the Niners would do. And they've really prioritized becoming a more balanced offense and a good running team. Kyron Williams is a good back. Yes, he's prone to turning it over, coughing it up, putting the pill on the carpet, but he is 11th in the NFL in rushing yards, and he's been playing really well during the Rams' 3-game winning streak. Can this Niners offense continue to find a balance? Their 2 best offensive games this season that I think they've played their best from start to finish is the Falcons game and the Giants game. I know that Rams game was really impressive, but they had to air it out a ton, and Mac Jones threw it 39 times. Kyle Shanahan's offense is at its best when it's balanced, when the Niners can find success running it. They found success running the ball with 39 carries against Atlanta, 39 carries against the Giants, and it naturally opens up the pass game. And in this offense, when Kyle Shanahan's team has that early momentum, when they have that early lead, they can dictate the pace and the momentum, the complexion of the game. That's when they can get in control and play their best. Like the Niners did in Week 5, ball's going to have to bounce their way on Sunday. They're going to have to play a near-perfect game. They're going to have to get good performances. If they play like they did against Jacksonville, where they turn it over 4 times, they will lose, and they will lose badly. If there's a weakness on this Rams team, obviously along the defensive line, they're really good. Jared Verse is one of the best defensive players in football. Byron Young this year has 9 sacks. But they do have one of the latest and worst cornerback situations in the NFL. And so if the Niners can get that ground game humming, and then you attack their corners downfield, we saw Kendrick Bourne have an incredible game back in Week 5. That's a good formula for the Niners to win this ball game. 535 people watching live. So glad all of you are here. Plenty of people here to get your questions in for our mailbag. So use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. And with this many people watching live, we got 86 likes right now. Hit that thumbs up icon. Like the video. Spunky Guy with the $2 super chat. Good day, Chase and Chip. I have faith that we will win. I hope you're right, man. And I know the faithful, it's called the faithful for a reason. Niners definitely have an opportunity to win this football game. Joseph Ernberg, $2 super chat. I think the Niners lose out and go 6-11. Joseph, you might be frustrated with what happened at the NFL trade deadline. I guarantee you they don't lose out. If they lose out, I'll punish myself in some way, shape, or form here live on the show for you. Spunky Guy, $2 super chat. Niners win by 1 score. Watching from Sacramento. We got a lot of people watching from all across the globe. Let me know where you're watching from down in the comment section. I'm ready to start the official show after getting to some news. If you want to talk some Niners, hit that thumbs up icon. Like the video. Segment number 1. Going to take a look at the top free agent targets who the Niners could go after following the 2025 NFL trade deadline. Obviously, that was on Tuesday. We were live for that. Now we shift our focus to some other players who the Niners could bring in to improve their team. Let's get into it here. I'm Chase Sr., producer Chip here as well. We're hanging out with the Niner gang, and let's talk San Francisco right now. All right, we're off and running. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Sr. here with you. And as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. What we're getting into here, we want to take a look at the top Niners free agent targets after the 2025 NFL trade deadline. So San Francisco no longer can trade for anybody, but if they feel as though they have needs remaining on this roster, here are some players who they could sign to the 53 or even the practice squad. Free agent target number 1 is along the interior of this defensive line, and it's Christian Wilkins. Now, you're going to hear this name and say, man, with the Miami Dolphins, he was a great player. He signed that big deal with the Las Vegas Raiders. Why is he still out there? Well, it's still unclear if he's even healthy because the Raiders wanted him, according to our sources here at Chat Sports, to get a surgery on the Liz Frank injury on his foot. Maybe it was a Jones fracture. Either way, a foot surgery. Christian Wilkins didn't want to get that surgery. There are also some weird locker room accusations lingering around Christian Wilkins as well. Him getting a little touchy with teammates out there. That's some of the buzz that's been speculated. And there have been zero reports of any visits. So teams clearly a little bit scared off. But I'll tell you what, when this guy is right, he's a really good player in the National Football League. Now, he signed that big deal with the Raiders. Didn't work out. It blew up in their faces. Only played 5 games with the Raiders last year because he hurt his foot. Then early this offseason, we saw photos surfacing of him in this walking boot. So that foot really never healed. But in 2023, 9 sacks with Miami. The year before that, 3.5. The year before that, 4.5. He's been a very productive and disruptive player from the interior defensive line. But again, I'm staying away because of those injury problems. Free agent target number 2. This is a player who I think would work out well for the Niners and be a really good fit on the field, fulfilling a need, but also in the locker room. Multi-time All-Pro safety Justin Simmons. He did not play that well with the Atlanta Falcons last year, but the Falcons have not been a well-run organization, and that defense last year was horrid. And they were last in the NFL in sacks, last in the NFL in pressure percentage. They gave up the most passing touchdowns in the league last year. And so that didn't do the back end any favors. But with Simmons here, we're talking about a 4-time second-team All-Pro. I'm surprised he's still available. He's 31 years old. And the Niners' safeties have not performed well this year, whether it be Marquise Siegel and Jason Pinnock, whether it be now what we're seeing from Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa. Free agent target number 3, Asante Samuel Jr. Really good young player who's available. Just got that spinal fusion surgery, and he was medically cleared. And so with him finally being cleared for football activities, he got that surgery in April. He's free to sign with any team. And according to ESPN, he's in touch with a lot of teams. He plans to make free agency visits. And how about this? He is going to visit the 49ers on Monday. Now, the numbers with Renardo Green haven't been great. I actually think he's played okay. It's not like he's given up a ton of explosive plays this year. Deommodore Lenoir continues to be one of the more underrated players in the National Football League. Upton Stout, he's on the rise, and I think he's going to continue to get better. You add Asante Samuel Jr. to the mix. Yes, he has that injury history, but this is a high-level starting caliber corner who makes plays on the football, has really good instincts, obviously has NFL bloodlines. His pops played in the league and was a great corner for the Patriots and the Eagles. And before Junior got hurt last year, double-digit pass breakups every single season prior to that. And already he's visited with a couple of teams and has more visits coming up. Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, Carolina Panthers. And then obviously with this being a fluid situation, more teams are being added to that, including, according to Ian Rappaport, the 49ers on Monday. We've talked a lot about Junior here on the show. If you want the Niners to sign him, hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. If not, that's fine. But I always want you to have a voice and debate here on the show, so give me your reasoning. Stephon Gilmore, checking in at number 4. 35-year-old corner. Obviously, his best days are behind him, but a 2019 Defensive Player of the Year, made the Pro Bowl a couple of years ago. Last year, he played on the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings had one of the best defenses in the NFL, and he had 9 pass breakups. The year before that with Dallas, 13 pass breakups. With Indy in 2022, 11 pass breakups. So a savvy, accomplished veteran right there. A lot of Niner fans are familiar with this name, Eric Kendricks, the linebacker. And with Eric Kendricks, he verbally agreed to a deal with the Niners last year during the legal tampering period. And then when free agency actually started, he spurned the Niners, signed with the Dallas Cowboys. I actually don't think he played poorly last year under Mike Zimmer with Dallas. 138 tackles, 4 TFLs, 3 sacks, and 2 picks. Another player who has that type of Pro Bowl resume. And I like the Niners' young backers. Tatum, Bethune, I hope that Nick Martin could see the field at some point. D. Winters is a pretty solid player. But for Kendricks, if an injury happened at linebacker and the Niners are really trying to make a playoff push, he's a vet who's seen everything at this level. Jawan Bentley at the linebacker spot, former New England Patriot. Last year, 12 tackles, no TFLs, no pass breakups, no picks. But you see in the 3 prior years to that, because he only played 2 games last year, he racked up double-digit tackles in all of those years. So he's been a consistent, productive player throughout his career. Another linebacker here off ball is Josie Jewell, who's had some solid moments throughout his NFL career, but like with all of these players, there's a reason why he's still available. Now, last year, he was a productive player for Carolina. 97 tackles, 7 TFLs. That's the ability to go up against the run. You can use him as an occasional blitzer, especially as a delayed blitzer. 3.5 sacks and 7 pass breakups. So he wasn't awful in coverage. There are some solid names on this free agency list for San Francisco. And we're going to get back to that list here coming up just around the corner. But first, today's sponsor of the 49ers Report, brought to you by Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right, come on now, it never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. This is America's #1 fantasy sports app. You pick, predict, play. You get your picks in less than 60 seconds, and you can win some big-time money. All you got to do is choose more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're good to go. This is the only app that offers stacks. You can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Christian McCaffrey's receiving yards, rush yards, and touchdowns. Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. Looking ahead to Sunday, Niners, Rams, Christian McCaffrey more than the 50.5 receiving yards. It's been a great selection all year long because he's been one of the most productive receivers in football. Devontae Adams, more than half rushing or receiving touchdown. He's got 8 tutties this year. And then I think George Kittle finds the end zone, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. We go back to the cornerback spot, and let's take a look at Kendall Fuller here. Again, I don't hate what the Niners have had at the cornerback spot, but if they want to bring in a veteran, because there isn't a ton of depth there, opposite of Darrell Luter Jr., who was a full participant this week, but is dealing with an Achilles problem, they could look to go after a guy in Fuller who is a former 3rd-round pick and spent some time with Washington, with Kansas City, back with Washington, Miami, and most recently with the Detroit Lions. Last year in 11 games with Miami, he did register 7 pass breakups, 15 games with Washington in 2023, 9 PBUs. Look at the PBU numbers in 2021 and in 2022, 16 and 13. An edge rusher. This is more of a fit for a 3-4 defense, but Shaq Barrett has been a productive player throughout his entire career. He really made a name for himself while playing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he's had some seasons where he's had really good sack production prior to being with Tampa Bay. Good player for the Denver Broncos from 2014 through 2018, and a fantastic story as an undrafted free agent out of Colorado State. Before that, Nebraska, Omaha. So he's been with the Broncos, Bucks, Dolphins, went back to the Bucks, 2-time Super Bowl champ, a second-team All-Pro in 2019, a 2-time Pro Bowler most recently in 2021. His most recent productive year, when he was still playing really well, 10 sacks in 2021. There was also a season, as I pull up some of his numbers here on the fly, where he had some crazy sack numbers. It was back in 2019 when he had 19.5 sacks under Todd Bowles. DJ Chark is a wide receiver who I don't think he moves as well, obviously, as he once did. There were some years where he definitely had some productive seasons. I don't think the Niners are going to go after a wideout, but they could if it got to a point where Brandon Ayuk doesn't come back. Jacob Cowing has re-injured his hamstring 3 times. DJ Chark was a Pro Bowler back in 2019 when he went over 1,000 yards. Outside of that, he struggled to stay healthy. Back to the cornerback spot, James Bradbury. For the Philadelphia Eagles back in 2022, he was a second-team All-Pro. The Eagles tried to use him at safety in training camp going into last year. Then he suffered a lower body injury. In 2023, he did not play well. Did have 13 pass breakups, but was an awful tackler. In 2022, that's when he was an All-Pro with those 17 PBUs. He an All-Pro alongside Darius Slay that year for a team that went to the Super Bowl. Gus Edwards at the running back spot. For me, when I look at the Niners backfield and when I examine it, is Isaac Orendo ever going to get a carry? Is Jordan James ever going to see the field? Can we see more from Brian Robinson? So Gus Edwards is a player who ran for 810 yards in 2023. He's been a productive guy as far as finding the end zone, 13 tutties in 2023 for Baltimore, but I don't think the Niners go the route of a running back. Isaiah Simmons, man, when he was coming into the NFL out of college, a freak athlete, but I think that you can classify him as the classic tweener. Started off with Arizona, then he went to the Giants and really never found a groove because he was kind of an in-betweener as far as being an edge rusher. Is he a 3-4 or a 4-3 guy? Is he an off-ball linebacker? No team was really able to figure that out with him. Jamal Williams, I love the swagger that he has. I like the physicality that he plays with. When he was with the Lions a few years ago, led the NFL in touchdowns. Von Bell is the safety who in this league has been a hard hitter and at times very solid in coverage. Deontay Johnson had some workouts with teams recently, the most recent one with the New York Giants, and this is just a bad apple in the locker room. I mean, last year he was with, 4 or 5 teams over the span of a calendar year. When he was with Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin was able to manage him, and he had some really good years. Since then, hasn't been able to stick with the team. Odell Beckham Jr. obviously had one of the best starts to an NFL career for any wide receiver in the history of the NFL. Tore his ACL, came back, had some good years with Cleveland, was good with the Rams, tore his ACL again. He's dealt with a ton of injuries. In 22, missed the entire season. The most recent ball that he played was with Miami last year, and he just didn't have that same pop. Now, this is a Chat Sports favorite here. Will Odell Beckham play in the NFL again? OBJ for yes, no BJ for no. Let me know down in the comments section. Nelson Aguilar won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2017, had a career season that year as well. Played good after he left the Eagles, and for Lamar Jackson was a solid threat, high character guy in the locker room. Cam Smith at the cornerback spot. This is a former, 2nd or 3rd round pick who's still out there. And then Lewis Seen at safety, a former 1st round pick not long ago out of Georgia by the Minnesota Vikings. Got let go by Minnesota, signed by Philadelphia. And I just think that he was a better player in college and just never really panned out at the NFL level. Other free agents here. Cam Sutton at cornerback, former Niner, Emmanuel Mosley. Unfortunately, Emmanuel Mosley left the Niners, signed a decent deal with Detroit, and has never been able to stay healthy since then. And obviously the last year with the Niners, he did tear his ACL on the road against the Carolina Panthers on that turf surface. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. That's unfortunate for him because his story in going from a guy who was an afterthought coming out of college to earning his stripes at the NFL level, it's just sucked to see him not be able to stay healthy. Zach Moss at running back. If you're looking at offensive lineman, Brandon Scherf, 5th overall pick from long ago by Washington. He's still out there. Jared Wills is still out there as well, but there aren't a lot of good offensive linemen, which obviously I know Niner fans will bring up. So with that, name a free agent who you want the Niners to sign. That's a look at the top free agents available after the NFL trade deadline. Get your voices down in the comment section. Let me know. You can also let me know what you think about this show, about this channel, about this content on social media. I'm always talking about the Niners here. I'm always talking about the Niners on X and IG as well at Chase_Senior. All right, we will do our mailbag segment number 3. So get your questions in right now. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. We have nearly 700 people watching live. So as you come in here, continue to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. The more likes that we get, the more people who find the stream and the more fun that we'll have here on the show. We always want to get more Niner fans in the chat and watching the show. Shout out to the recent commenter club, Reen Corral, Nicole, and Harold Gillenwater. What's up? Long time no see. Nathan Murs, Trip Aces, all in the comment section. Steve-O, David Dool, what up? I see some Asante Jr., some Kendricks in there as well. Brandon Scherf. Who else? Simmons and Gibson. Obviously, Gibson played with the Niners for a couple of years there. All right, coming up next, I'm going to explain why I'm pissed off with the 49ers. First, we're 10 likes away from 200. Let's get there. Hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. And with that, let's hop into segment number 2 and keep this train rolling. Hey there, welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Senior, and coming up on the show, I'm pissed off with this football team right now, and I know a lot of you are with me, and you feel that as well, with the Niners being 6-3 going into the NFL trade deadline. Obviously now coming out of it, going into Week 10 against the Rams, it feels as though, and it feels like, they mailed it in. They waved the white flag by not making a move at the deadline, and that annoys me because they had a need at pass rusher, and they didn't address it after the Mykel Williams injury, and I think this is fitting. I want to pop up today's poll question. It's the pinned comment of today's show. Will the 49ers make the playoffs this year? Type yes, type no. Let me know and join the conversation down in the comment section right now. So after the Mykel Williams injury, pass rusher was a glaring need for the Niners. And it's been a big need since Nick Bosa went out after tearing his ACL in Week 3 against the Arizona Cardinals. I thought always that the Niners could survive without making a move at linebacker after the devastating injury to Fred Warner as he dislocated and broke his ankle. But you can't survive in the NFL, especially with the way that modern offenses matriculate downfield, all of the creativity, the play calling, the play designs, and all of the high skill level players on the field without a pass rush. And this defensive line is really tied to the secondary. If you can't generate a pass rush and get to the quarterback, it's not fair to that back end. You're asking these corners to stick with these wideouts for 5 to 10 seconds, and it's really hard to do that. Have you ever played football in snow? Who's it easier for? Playing wide receiver or cornerback? The wide receiver knows where he's going. The cornerback has to react to where the receiver is going. So that's kind of a funny comparison that I make with playing secondary on that back end. When you can't get a pass rush, how long do you expect your secondary to hold up? How do you expect them to play high-level ball if the quarterback has all day to throw, where they can go through their progressions, go through their reads, pick some flowers, eat a sandwich, sip some coffee, and then throw the football downfield? But if the pass rush is good, it does wonders for the secondary and the rest of the defense. And the Niners are in a spot now where they have one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL. This is based on tape. This is based on personnel. It's also based on the numbers. The Niners' pass rushing rankings this year, they have 11 total sacks as a team. That's tied for 29th in the NFL. They have 98 total pressures. It's 28th in the NFL. Their pressure rate, 29.4%. It's 31st in the NFL. Their leading sack producer is Bryce Huff. He's missed the last couple of games. Their second leading sack producer, Nick Bosa, who barely played in that Week 3 game before tearing his ACL against Arizona. Sam Okuwanu is tied with them. So the 49ers, the Niners didn't need to make a trade for a superstar. That's never what the expectation was. Obviously, they were very interested in Trey Hendrickson, but the price tag was too hot. I get that. But they couldn't even make a move for a depth piece after they lost their second opening day starter at defensive end in Mykel Williams on top of Nick Bosa. And I just think that a depth piece, another body at this point, because it's a numbers game on this roster, would have helped them dramatically. And let me ask you this. Where does this edge rusher rotation rank among the 32 teams in the NFL? Bryce Huff is the most proven pass rusher on this team. He has 4 sacks, and he's been a revelation this year. And I always love that move from the jump, which is why I talked about it in March, months before it was made, because I like the thought of him teaming back up with Robert Saleh. He's been very disruptive. Outside of that, Keion White played very well in his Niners debut, but he plays better when he rushes the quarterback from defensive tackle. Clelin Ferrell was a street free agent. The Niners added him to the practice squad. He's a good scheme fit. Chris Kocurek brings the best out of him. He had one of his best years back in 2023 when he had 3.5 sacks, but there's a reason why no other teams brought him in. Sam Okuwanu is a former UDFA who has been a great developmental story for San Francisco. He could play defensive end. He could play defensive tackle. He plays with a relentless motor, but he kind of is who he is. And then Robert Beal has never done anything at the NFL level. So among the 32 teams in the NFL, this is definitely a bottom 5 edge rusher rotation. And again, I'm talking about edge rushers here, not defensive tackles. Another bummer about this and why I'm annoyed, Robert Saleh has done an incredible job with this Niners defense this year. They are 10th in the league in points per game. They have a top 10 red zone defense. With what he's done, with all of these injuries, the lack of talent, combined with having to play a bunch of young players, for the Niners defense to perform at this high of a level, what an incredible coaching job that Robert Saleh has done this year. And I predicted that he was going to make this defense leaps and bounds better than it was in 2024. But you might only have him this year. And I thought that the Niners should have maximized potentially only having him for 1 year before he walks potentially and gets a head coaching job elsewhere. Now, he's going to make chicken salad out of chicken shit like he's done all year, but at times, it's not going to work when you dial up blitzes like we saw against Houston. And so it's unfair to him to not give him enough ingredients for the recipe to try to maximize this defensive unit. And how do you think some of the veterans on this Niners team are feeling after San Francisco decided to stand pat? If you're Trent Williams and you're 37 years old, you're like, man, that kind of stinks. If you're Christian McCaffrey, who up until this point has actually stayed healthy, and going into this year, he had missed 10-plus games in 3 of the last 5 years, you're like, man, that's a bummer. I mean, CMC leads the NFL in touches, but it could be all for naught because there's a ceiling on this Niners team. George Kittle is starting to get a little bit older. He's toward the tail end of his prime. For a player like that, it kind of stinks. And fans, and yours truly, aren't the only ones who are feeling frustrated by this. According to Mike Silver, very tapped into the Niners organization, he reported this on Wednesday. The reason so many Niner fans and plenty of people in the building are so frustrated the team didn't make any trades yesterday isn't because they're in search of some knee-jerk sugar high. It's because this injury-plagued defense, as currently constituted, isn't good enough. And in the back of our mind, we all know this team isn't good enough. You get in the dance, anything can happen. So I think Niner fans should be frustrated and annoyed that the Niners did not make a move. And there are some people who cover this football team who are saying Niner fans shouldn't be frustrated. You should be content because you don't want to get fleeced in any deal. But there were moves to be made. Draymond Jones went to the Ravens at 3-5. And the Ravens got him for a 6th or 7th round pick. The Niners could have given up something like that for a player like that. Now, it's not for a lack of making moves. I've said this for years here on this show. And this is a reason why we talk about trade rumors on this show. John Lynch has been an aggressive general manager during his tenure, especially going into the deadline. Traded for Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017, traded for Emmanuel Sanders in 2019, traded for Jordan Willis in 2020, Charles Omenihu in 2022, traded for Christian McCaffrey in 2023, or 2022, 2022, traded for Chase Young in 2023. So it's not for a lack of making moves. But the 49ers as a team have as many sacks as Brian Burns. The 49ers as a team have as many quarterback hits as Zach Allen. And you just can't survive when you play defensive football in this manner when you can't rush the quarterback. Simple. Now, John Lynch, of course, was asked about this and said this about the trade deadline on KNBR. We're top 4 in the league in trades made this year. We did a lot to improve our team, and we did it to the end. We weren't going to make an overpayment. We weren't going to get fleeced. We weren't going to overpay. Here's the problem. I'll give you credit for making trades for Brian Robinson and Sky Moore and making moves like that, right? But after the Michael Williams injury, you are now once again one injury away from scrambling at defensive end and being in no man's land. Now, I want to expand on that coming up just around the corner. First, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. When I do Niners shows, I want them to be informative. I want them to be insightful. I want them to be thought-provoking. I want you to think a little bit. I want them to be conversational. I want them to be engaging, for you to have a voice. If all that sounds great, I think that's a big reason why we've been able to grow this show into the empire that it is. Let's get to 177,000 subscribers and hit that sub button right now. Let's get to our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Omaha Steaks. There's no off-season for flavor with Heartland quality food delivered right to your door. And Omaha Steaks is the official sponsor of tailgating. Weather's starting to get a little bit cooler. It feels like football weather out there. There's nothing better than a tailgate. And Omaha Steaks delivers legendary flavor that makes game day unforgettable right to your door. Enjoy grass-fed, grain-finished, extra-aged, USDA-certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, and more, with game day favorites also like wings, deli-style franks, brats, and cheesesteaks. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety. Every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee, and every steak is perfectly aged to maximize tenderness and hand-cut by master butchers in America's heartland. Grass-fed, grain-finished beef has more marbling for exceptional flavor, and it's the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs all around the world. How about this? Omaha Steaks has been America's original butcher since 1917. 5 generations of uncompromising quality backed by an unconditional 100% money-back guarantee. So make game day delicious with the official sponsor of tailgating. Visit omahasteaks.com. And faithful, listen up. When you use the promo code 49ers at checkout, you get $35 off. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code 49ers at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Let's go. Now, I sent out a couple of tweets having debates and conversations with people on social media with fans and media members who have said, I'm content that the Niners didn't make a move. You can't sacrifice future draft capital because that draft capital is very valuable. You can't overpay. You can't go after a rental. Well, for the people who were saying, I'm fine with the Niners not making a move, they weren't going to go to the playoffs or do anything in the playoffs anyway, let me ask you this. Did Niner fans out there expect San Francisco to make the NFC Championship game in 2021 when they started the season 3-5 with Jimmy Garoppolo? Now they have Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. Both those quarterbacks better than Jimmy G. How about in 2022 when the Niners started 4-4? Did you expect them to make it to the NFC Championship game then? Well, some people might be saying they had Nick Bosa and Fred Warner healthy for those seasons. They had Jimmy G at quarterback in 2021, and they had a third-string rookie quarterback in 2022 in Brock Purdy, who was drafted with the final pick in the NFL draft. The point here is get in the dance, and anything can happen. In 2021, the Niners were underdogs in the wild card round on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. They kicked their ass. How about them Cowboys? The Niners were underdogs going up against the Packers, who were the number 1 seed at Lambeau Field as the snow was coming down. And in a physical, defensive-oriented ball game that came down to the wire, the Niners blocked a punt, returned it for a touchdown. Robbie Gould split the uprights at the buzzer, and the Niners made it to the NFC title game. They should have made it to the Super Bowl that year. They were up 17-7 going into the fourth quarter. Jaquiski Tartt dropping that pick. Brutal. The Niners in 2021 got into the playoffs in general because of a wild, crazy win the last week of the season when they were down by 17 points against the Rams. In 2022, they got off to that slow start. They traded for Christian McCaffrey. His first game as a Niner, they got shellacked by the Kansas City Chiefs. Then they went on that run, and that run included legendary play by Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, Brock Purdy, who went undefeated the rest of the way and then won 2 playoff games before he got hurt in the NFC Championship game against Philly. For the people who are saying you can't give up draft picks, man, the Niners need those. Recent Niners third-round picks: Jake Moody, Cam Watu, Danny Gray, Trey Sermon, Ty Davis-Price. All no longer on the team. The Eagles, on the other hand, gave up a third-round pick for edge rusher Jalen Phillips. And if he leaves after the year, then Eagles get a third-round pick compensatory selection back. That's good business right there. Now, some people might say, well, what do you think about Jair Brown, Dominic Pooney, and Upton Stout? They were former third-round picks who were starting for this football team. Would they be better than a Jalen Phillips or a Jermaine Johnson? Jair Brown is one of the worst starting safeties in the NFL. I like Upton Stout, and we'll see what he becomes. Dominic Pooney has really struggled in year 2. You have no idea what those players are going to become. You do have an idea what the player is who you're trading for, because that player, for the most part, is proven. And speaking of the Eagles, a lot of people will say, Chase, stop comparing the Niners to the Philadelphia Eagles. I hate the Eagles. They beat the Niners in the NFC Championship game, and even though we shellacked them in 2023, I hate them. Well, that's the model organization in the sport right now. They've won 2 Lombardi trophies since 2017. They have the best, most aggressive, most savviest, and most gangster general manager in football, who has earned the nickname Ski Mask Howie. With the way that they operate, ownership, general manager, culture, roster building, that's an organization that you want to follow. The Niners, on the other hand, have not won a Super Bowl since 1994. Stop living in this world where you think the Niners have been the Patriots dynasty. They haven't. So if I'm ever critical of the Niners, it's because I want them to win. They've been so close to winning. But aggressive teams and aggressive businesses win, and at the deadline, they weren't aggressive enough. And so it's a copycat league. Keep in mind what the Eagles are doing and apply that type of strategy. Now, it's important to note that Jeffrey Lurie is the Eagles owner. He lets Howie have the runway to make all of these moves. We're blaming John Lynch here. It could very well be Jed York saying, you can't make a move. It just doesn't make sense. It's not the year. Let's not do it. But you're 6-3 in a wide open NFC. You have 6 wins. You're in 3rd place in the NFC West, but the Seahawks and the Rams have 6 wins as well. You're 3-0 inside this division. The New York Jets, they wanted a 2nd-round pick for Jermaine Johnson. Is that a little bit high for an asking price? Yeah, a little bit. But does he make your football team better now? Could you sign him beyond this year? He's also a restricted free agent next year. So on a rookie contract, he's actually pretty affordable at the defensive end spot. You don't know when Nick Bosa and Mykel Williams are going to come back. So you're going to be light at defensive end next year anyway. Is the player that you're going to draft in the 2nd round better than Jermaine Johnson? Might not be. And this is a player who thrived under Robert Saleh. You couldn't get Bradley Chubb for a future mid-round pick? I think you could have. Don't forget to give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. Always appreciate the support. And look, whether you like me, whether you hate me, whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, I love talking football with all of you. It's obviously a huge passion of mine. Mailbag coming up next. Get those questions in. Hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. How are we doing on questions, Chip? Do we have enough?
Let us see. We did get this super chat just now from Silent.
Saleh and Trent were hopeful before 10-4. Front office screwed them. Saleh and Trent were hopeful before, is that October 4th? Before 10-4? Front office screwed them. See, like, if I'm Trent Williams, if I'm Robert Saleh, if I'm Christian McCaffrey, if I'm George Kittle, I'm either older or I know I might not be here for a little while, and I'm trying to maximize this year while also, of course, being smart about your future asset management. Niners could have made a trade. They could have improved easily. If we didn't get enough questions for the mailbag, that's all good. We can just play our preview here. Niners, Rams.
Oh, yeah. I think we got 1, 2, 3, 4. We have like 7 questions.
7 questions? We should be good to run it. use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. That's hashtag 49ers, send in a super chat. Last call to get your mailbag questions in before we open up the floor and take your questions live on the San Francisco 49ers Report. Ready to do that mailbag?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. Here we go. Yo, what's going on? Welcome into the show. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. As always, thank you so much for supporting the program. Coming up here on the show, going to open up the floor for a mailbag. You have questions. I have answers. We talk Niners every single day on this channel, so let's do it right now. Spunky Guy leads us off in the leadoff spot with this $2 super chat. The Niners should have gotten a defensive end before the trading was over. And look, you share my thoughts on this. If the Niners didn't make a trade going into the deadline and Mykel Williams was healthy, I would have been fine with it. But Mykel Williams tore his ACL. He's out for the year. And now the Niners edge rusher rotation is one of the worst and one of the thinnest in the National Football League. And I think that there were moves to be made that you could have done if you're San Francisco to improve your football team. And I know a lot of people have said, well, Chase, the Niners wouldn't have done anything this year anyway. Did you think the Niners were going to make it to the playoffs in 2021 when they started 3-5? They made it to the NFC Championship game that year. How about in 2022 when they started 4-4, rallied at the end of the year, they were reinvigorated and re-energized by the Christian McCaffrey trade, and they made it to the NFC Championship game. You get in the dance and anything can happen. And something else that's valuable and under talked about by just making it to the playoffs when you have a young team, when you're resetting, what a terrific job it would be to get to the playoffs during a hybrid rebuild year. But also, how important is it to give your young players playoff experience so that they can feel that pressure, so that they can feel the playoff intensity, speed, and physicality. And I just think the Niners missed the boat. Joseph Ernberg, and look, Mike Silver reported, a lot of people inside that Niners building frustrated that the Niners didn't make a move as well. You're one injury away from being in a horrible spot as far as your defensive end situation. Joseph Ernberg, I think the Niners lose out and go 6-11. Highly disagree. I think the Niners are still going to make the playoffs. They have started 6-3. And here's the thing about the Niners. Bummed out that they didn't make a trade, right? But with Kyle Shanahan running the offense, Robert Saleh running the defense, with an improved special teams unit led by Brant Boyer, they're going to have an opportunity to win every game. Unfortunately, the margin for error is extremely thin. You will have a game like the Rams game where you beat a playoff opponent, but you had to play pretty much perfectly, and you had to make huge plays and the ball had to bounce your way. There will be games when you can beat up on a bad team, like the New York Giants. But when you are bereft of talent, especially in critical areas like your defensive line and your pass rush, there will also be games where sometimes you just don't have it, and things can snowball like they did against the Houston Texans. So, Joseph, I guarantee you the Niners do not lose out the rest of the way. I always had predicted, I think the Niners reverse that this year and they go 11-6. Maybe it's more like 10-7, but I think they're a playoff caliber team and they'll be competitive for the rest of the year. But making a move for a pass rusher, I think would have made them a more productive pass rushing unit, thus making them a better defense. Words of wisdom, Aztec. Chase, as you pointed out, who cares if Lynch has all the picks next year? They cannot pick for crap. So it's a mixed bag, right? I mean, you look at that 2023 Niners team, they're one of the most talented teams in the history of the NFL that didn't win a Super Bowl. And a lot of players on that team were drafted and developed by the Niners. You look at the team this year, right? A lot of their starters drafted and developed, and there's obviously room for them to get better. They have missed on a lot of first-round picks. They have not hit on a first-rounder since Brandon Ayuk in 2020. Before that, Nick Bosa 2019. Since then, they have not hit on a first-rounder. Now, there were a couple of years where they didn't have a first-round pick due to the Trey Lance trade, but they've missed for sure. A player like Drake Jackson, huge miss. But also in the mid to late rounds, they've hit on a lot of players. Fred Warner, 3rd round. George Kittle, 5th round. Talanoa Hufanga, all-pro, 5th round. Diamador Lenore, really good corner, 5th round. So there have been their share of hits and misses, but that's the case with any team. But for everybody saying, like, you got to keep those picks. If you trade for a player, that player is a more proven commodity sometimes than potential draft picks. And the draft isn't a sure thing. I think the Niners should have gone after somebody and made a trade for a player who can help them right now. Nathan, Brandon Scherf retired. He's not playing. Any other offensive linemen out there? So Scherf retired, but look, let's not act like guys haven't come out of retirement to play for teams, especially when they can join a team in a playoff hunt for a stretch run. I mean, John Feliciano had all those knee injuries last year, and he retired, but he even tweeted out at the start of this year, if John Lynch needs an interior offensive lineman, he knows how to call. As far as other offensive linemen, not a lot of good ones left. I'm just trying to think off the top of my... Jedrick Wills is somebody who's available. Cody Whitehair is available, but he's not really that good. So at this point of the year, when we're about to embark on the middle portion of November, just not a lot of good players remaining. Jonathan Lamont, what's good, Brody? We should get Asante Samuel Jr. and add Mo Kamara from the Dolphins practice squad. Your thoughts? I know Krug, friend of the show, really likes Mo Kamara, and that's a player who the Niners could poach off of a practice squad if they added him to the active roster. I'd certainly be intrigued by that. Isaiah Foskey is a player on the Bengals practice squad, a former second-round pick out of Notre Dame. I'd look at a player like that. I know Azeez Ojulari is on the Eagles injured reserve, but if he comes back and they let him go, that's a player you could potentially sign who is 24 and has been a productive pass rusher. As far as Asante Samuel Jr., I'm interested in a player like that because of how he's played, the pedigree, the NFL bloodlines. Obviously, it's a concern when you have a spinal fusion surgery, but he is set to visit the Niners, as we talked about on Wednesday, on Monday. Now, today's 49ers Report, sponsored by our great friends at Omaha Steaks. And if you watch this show, you know that I love eating high-quality meats. I care about nutrition. I care about wellness and fitness. And that's why I love Omaha Steaks, because their quality is unrivaled and unmatched. This has been America's original butcher since 1917. 5 generations of uncompromising quality backed by an unconditional 100% money-back guarantee. A family-owned company with over 100 years of expertise in the meat industry, they carry mouth-watering steaks, burgers, chicken, pork, seafood, plus delectable desserts. And they love Niner fans so much, they have a phenomenal deal for all of you listening and watching the show. Make game day delicious with the official sponsor of Tailgating. Visit omahasteaks.com and get $35 off when you use the promo code 49ers at checkout. Omaha Steaks is the official sponsor of Tailgating. From legendary burgers to mouth-watering steaks, deli-style franks, so much more. You're going to elevate your next game day get-together with America's original butcher. For more than a century, Omaha Steaks has delivered the world's best steak experience. The filet mignons are my favorite. That's what I recommend. Omaha Steaks' legendary flavor is served in stadiums and homes all across the country. Enjoy grass-fed, grain-finished, extra-aged USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, and more game day favorites like wings, deli-style franks, and brats. Plus, if you're into Philly cheesesteaks, you can get those as well. And here's the thing. What's awesome about Omaha Steaks, some of the best steakhouses across America, you're eating Omaha Steaks. So get fired up for fall grilling. Use the code 49ers. I'm going to put this link, I'm going to put this information down in the show notes of today's show. I'm going to attach it to the pinned comment of today's San Francisco 49ers Report. Omaha Steaks, America's original butcher since 1917. We move forward with our mailbag. More questions coming in. Chosen, 1494. Why did John Lynch draft Nick Martin in the 3rd round if he's not good enough to play? Niners mailbag fleeced. So too early to say that, right? We saw in the preseason some good with Nick Martin and some bad. The good, The man flies around like a bat out of hell. He will run through a brick wall, and he plays with an unbelievable play speed. He's aggressive. He's physical. He's fearless. You can use him as a blitzer down the seam against the Raiders after he had a sack earlier on in that game. He made a play down the seam in coverage. I think it comes down to the Niners trusting him. Also, last year, he barely played, so he's a little bit rusty. But in 2023, triple-digit tackles, double-digit TFLs, had some sacks, had some pass breakups. He's a little bit smaller. And so I think the Niners want to see him bulk up a little bit, but they can't trust putting him out on the field because he might overrun something and it leads to an explosive play, which we also saw in the preseason. So too early to say that a third-round pick is a bust. Looks like he's a developmental piece, but it is unfortunate. Marquise Siegel, healthy scratch against the Giants after he was your opening day starter. CJ West, healthy scratch the last few weeks. Nick Martin, not seeing the field. It's not ideal. Hey, Chip, I have a twofold question. What about me, John? I'm here too. Just kidding. What about rushing or dropping 7 with those 4 rushing? And why haven't we picked up any of these free agents? Are they asking for too much? I think any of those free agents, John, are desperate to get a job and they want to be on a team and playing. But I think it's from the team standpoint, these players in early November are free agents for a reason. Either they're toward the tail end of their careers, they have injury problems, character concerns, a variety of issues. So there are some good players left who I think could help the Niners, who, like a Justin Simmons, I'm kind of surprised that he is unsigned. He's a 4-time second-team All-Pro. For a player like Asante Samuel Jr., it all comes down to the neck. He just got medically cleared. As far as rushing 4, dropping 7, here's the problem. The Niners haven't been able to generate pressure with their 4, which is why they have to blitz more, which obviously is risky because then you're lacking numbers on that back end. Steven Palomares, hopefully I pronounced that right. He likes the possibility of the Niners signing Isaiah Simmons. Maybe we can convert him into a solid defensive end, plus it's a need. And here's the issue with Simmons. He was a guy coming out of college who was an athletic freak. I mean, when he was at Clemson, he made some wow plays. Chip knows he went to Clemson. 9.97 relative athletic score, but 6'3", 238. Right now, he would be one of the smallest edge rushers at that size. Now, he ran a 4.39, filthy. 39-inch vertical, ridiculous. 11-foot broad jump, wow. But he's too small to play defensive end, especially in a 4.3. He could play edge in a 3.4, and he's not good enough in coverage to play off-ball linebacker. So he's that classic tweener. Genie Wyatt, who will play center for the Niners? On Sunday, really not sure. I think that Matt Hennessy has done a pretty solid job. You know, I had told everybody this. He was a third-round pick coming out of Temple, and he had played pretty well for Atlanta. He just never really stayed healthy. Didn't make the Eagles roster going into 2024, but they had an awesome offensive line. You've seen him play pretty good football, and I think maybe he's slightly better than Jake Brendel. But Jake Brendel has a chance to play against the Rams coming off that hamstring injury. The Niners absolutely love him like they absolutely love Colton McKivitz. And so when he's healthy, I think the Niners and Kyle Shanahan will start him. Leon Sandcastle, what do you think about poaching Carl Lawson? So let me see here. Carl Lawson. Is he on the practice squad right now for the Ravens? Yes, he is. So that's a player who you could poach. 6'2", 260, fourth round pick back in 2017. You know, a solid player with the Bengals from 2017 to 2020, with the Jets from 2021 to 2023, with the Cowboys last year, all rookie team in 2017. I think he's kind of flatlined from that point. 8.5 sacks as a rookie, 1 in year 2, 5 in year 3, 5.5 in 2020. Didn't play due to injury in 2021. 7 sacks in 2022. No sacks in 6 games last year. Didn't play in 2024. Now on a practice squad. If it got to a point where you're that desperate, maybe you do that. But I'd almost rather go after a young player. A Mo Kamara, an Isaiah Foskey, and Antoine Powell-Ryland on the Eagles, who was a 6th-round pick back in April. I'd rather go with a younger player who maybe you can build and mold. W. Cham, the Niners are punching way above their weight. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the NFC West. It's certainly possible. I do think the Seahawks are better, and right now they are playing scary good football. The defense is a top 5 unit, and their offense, over the last few weeks especially, has really gotten it going. They've looked explosive. The trade for Rashid Shaheed, one of the more underrated, under-talked about moves that any team made at the deadline. That guy is on pace for more than 1,000 yards, and he is a speedster and a burner who could take the top off of the defense. Kubiak's in his bag calling plays. Sam Darnold's been balling. Jackson Smith and Jigba leads the NFL in receiving yards. Torrey Horton, late-round pick, he's been cooking. So the Seahawks are really good. Rams are really good. It's going to come down to the matchups inside this division. The Niners still have to play the back end of their divisional games. They're 3-0 in the NFC West, but games coming up against the Rams, Cardinals, final week against Seattle. Words of wisdom, $2. Only reason to watch the Niners, Chase's watch parties. Plus the shows that we do every single day, because the content does not stop. Who you got? Appreciate that, words. LAR for the Rams. SF for the 49ers. Get your predictions in for Sunday's game. As always, thank you so much for watching the Mailbag. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll catch you soon. All right. Still 550 people watching. Continue to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Coming up next, about a 30-minute preview for this Niners-Rams game. That is coming up here next. Matchups to watch, keys to the game, my prediction, injury news, scouting report on the Rams, scouting report on the Niners. I always enjoy doing our previews because I do think they're some of the most in-depth previews covering both teams on YouTube. So about a 30-minute preview coming up, and we're just going to sign off right after that preview. But that preview is coming up right now. If you want to be informed and you want to learn about this Niners-Rams matchup coming up. If any super chats come in, not going to be able to get to those, so I just want to say in advance, thank you so much for sending in those super chats. We'll round out with our Niners-Rams preview. It's coming up, and Chip and I will see you Sunday afternoon, Niners-Rams. Beat LA, San Francisco. Let's go. Here's our preview. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Senior hanging out here with you. And as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And coming up, another loaded show. Niners-Rams Week 10 preview, a huge matchup inside the NFC West. Kickoff set for 4:25 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, 1:25 p.m. Pacific at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara. And this betting line has changed over the last couple of days. And I was kind of surprised to see early in the week how the Niners were 2.5 point favorites, but a lot of money coming in on the Rams because a lot of people like Los Angeles to win this game and win this game by a few points. So the Rams 4.5 point favorites, the over-under pretty high, some offense potentially in this ball game, 49.5. We will be live right here on the San Francisco 49ers Report for another watch party. It's the best place to experience a Niners game day as a diehard Niners fan outside of being at the actual game. And here on the show, we do watch parties for every single Niners game. Subscribe, join us, hit that bell icon, turn on your notifications. Therefore, whenever we do go live, you will be notified. So I mentioned off the rip, big game inside the NFC West. This goes without saying, right? And you look at the NFC West standings, this division is wide open. Now, right now, I like the way that the Seahawks are playing the best inside this division. I think the Rams are the second best team, but the Niners are there as well. And when you have Kyle Shanahan coaching and calling the offense, and you have Robert Saleh coaching and calling the defense, with an improved special teams unit, you have an opportunity to win any given ball game, any given week. And so while the Niners are technically in third place at 6-3, they have the same amount of wins as the Rams, same amount of wins as the Seahawks, and the division is there to be grabbed right by the neck. What's also working in the favor of the Niners here, they are 3-0 inside the NFC West. They have a really good NFC record. The Rams and the Seahawks they don't have the divisional record that the Niners do at 3-0. Rams 0-1. This will obviously be their second NFC West tilt. And then the Seahawks are 1-1. A lot of meat left on the bone as far as the 2025 campaign goes. And I'm fascinated to see what transpires in this division. As I said prior to the year, I think it's going to be very close. I think it comes down to the wire. And of note, this game could be decided Week 18 when the Niners play host to the Seahawks. And this is also why I'm so frustrated that the Niners didn't make a move at the NFL trade deadline, because not only is the NFC West there to be had, but the NFC is also wide open. The Niners have just as many wins as the number 1 seed, the number 2 seed, the number 3 seed in the Eagles, Bucks, and Seahawks. They have more wins than the 4 seed in the Green Bay Packers at 5-2-1. So you look at how things have really developed inside the NFC this year. It's really been so interesting because there really isn't a clear-cut favorite inside this conference, and by season's end, you really don't know who's going to have home field advantage in this conference. Of course, you rewind back to Week 5. What a game it was on Thursday Night Football between the Niners and the Rams. A thriller where the Niners took that early lead, then the Rams came back, then somehow San Francisco came through with a couple of heroic, shocking plays late in the fourth quarter, late in the game, and in overtime, and they won as 8.5-point underdogs. San Francisco winning that game a few weeks ago, 26-23 at SoFi Stadium just outside of Los Angeles. The Niners, as I mentioned, took that early lead, went up 20-7 early on because Mac Jones was on fire. And a big recipe for Mac's success in that game, getting rid of the ball really quickly. Kendrick Bourne balled out. Mac Jones, 33 of 49, 342 yards and 2 touchdowns for the game. He was so tough in that game, taking a bunch of hits. At one point, he was throwing up on himself. He had to get carried off the field in overtime. You know who was also clutch? Eddie Pinheiro, 4 for 4 in that game. A big reason why the Niners won, including a career-long field goal for the second most accurate kicker in NFL history of 59 yards. His late field goal in overtime grazed off that left upright. And I mentioned some of the clutch plays and performances that the Niners had on defense. You had the Alfred Collins punch on Kyren Williams along the goal line. Niners got the ball back. And then in overtime, they won the game with that 4th-and-1 stop, where a collection of players made huge plays in order to make that stop come to fruition. Fred Warner, Diamador Lenore, Marquis Siegel, all making really big plays to stuff Kyren Williams on that 4th and short to put that game on ice. The Rams so far, Week 1, 14-9 winners over the Houston Texans at home. That Texans defense is superb, and so they only score 14 points, but the Texans offense has also been bad, outside of playing the Niners, of course. Week 2, the Rams cross-country travel to Nashville, and they beat the Titans 33-19. Then they took a huge lead against the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 3. Looked as though they were going to get that revenge for the Eagles sweeping them twice last year. Then the Eagles come back, 33-26 win for Philadelphia. The Rams flush that L. They come back and they beat a quality opponent in the Indianapolis Colts 27-20 at home. They lose to the Niners 26-23 in Week 5. And they have not lost since then. They have rattled off 3 consecutive wins. Week 6, 17-3 dub over the Ravens. That was when the Ravens were depleted and Lamar Jackson didn't play in that game. They crushed the Jacksonville Jaguars, 35-7. That was a Jags team that couldn't really get anything going on either side of the ball in that Week 7 game. Rams had their bye week in Week 8. Then they come out of the bye last week and they dusted a bad Saints team 34-10. When I scout the Rams, first on offense, man, Matthew Stafford has been slinging it this year. He's playing at a certified MVP level. He has 21 touchdowns to 2 interceptions this season. And that's thanks in part to having one of the top wide receiver duos in the National Football League. Puka Nacua has 711 yards this year. Devontae Adams still looking good at his age, even with all the tread on the tires. 491 yards receiving for him. And they're a really difficult matchup and cover for any secondary out there. And a lot of people say, with Stafford, Nakua, Adams, Sean McVay, they're a pass-happy offense. Sean McVay has kind of changed his philosophy over the last couple of years. He started to prioritize the offensive line a little bit more, and they give Kyron Williams a contract extension recently because he's ended up being and turned into a really good back. He's 11th in the NFL in rushing yards with 586. Of course, he has some fumbling problems, but he's really good. A short and stout, powerful running back. On defense, Jared Verse coming off the edge. That's a player who you have to watch in this football game because he can wreak havoc. He's one of the best players in the NFL. Byron Young has been the breakout player this year for the Rams, and I've liked his game prior to 2025, but this year he's having a career year with 9 sacks. The Rams secondary is definitely one of the thinnest and worst groups in the NFL, I would say. They really lean on that front four to help out the rest of their defense. Niners should take note. Again, annoyed they didn't make a move at the deadline. Now, they did trade for Roger McCreary, a slot corner formerly of the Tennessee Titans. He definitely helps out that secondary, but on the outside, their corner play is suspect, and that's a big reason why Kendrick Bourne was able to pop off back in week 5. Look at the difference between the injury reports between the Niners and the Rams. And I'm recording this show early on Thursday, so I'm looking at the Wednesday injury report here. So obviously context is important on that front. Christian McCaffrey did not practice on Wednesday, just getting veteran rest. Ricky Pearsall still not practicing because of that troublesome knee. Michael Williams, ACL out for the year, DNP. Trent Williams had a veteran rest day as well. Tatum Bethune, thigh, he was limited. Jake Brendel, hamstring, limited. Bryce Huff, hamstring, limited, expected to play. Brock Purdy, toe, limited. I think Mac Jones is going to get the start again. D. Winters, knee and knee. So I think that's a double knee issue for him, limited. Ben Barch, ankle, full participant. We'll see if he plays at left guard or if the Niners continue to roll with Spencer Burford, who played solid last week. Jawan Jennings, ankle, shoulder, full. Mac Jones, knee, full. Darrell Luter, Achilles. He was a full participant. So a long list of injuries for the Niners. It looks like a grocery list, right? For the Rams, not as vast, not as long. Jordan Whittington, late round wide receiver who's ended up turning into a good player. Back, he was a non-participant. Puka Nacua, chest, limited. He also hurt his ankle a couple of weeks ago. He's been banged up of late. Then you have Darius Williams, corner, shoulder, he too, limited. Who you got in this football game coming up on Sunday? Get those predictions in. I'll give you my prediction at the end of this preview. LAR for the Rams, SF for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, coming up next here on the show, I'm going to give you my keys to the game, top matchups to watch, what the Niners must do to get a win and move to 7-3, and in the process, they could sweep the Rams here in 2025. But let's get to our sponsor. The tailgating scene outside of Levi's Stadium, one of the best in the NFL. There's a lot of space for it, and a lot of Niner fans are passionate about their tailgating setups. Well, the sponsor for today's show, Omaha Steaks. And Omaha Steaks is the official sponsor of tailgating. From legendary burgers to mouth-watering steaks, deli-style franks, and so much more, you're going to elevate your next game day get-together with America's original butcher. For more than a century, Omaha Steaks has delivered the world's best steak experience. Omaha Steaks, they have legendary flavor, and it's served in stadiums and homes all across the country. You don't have to go to the game to tailgate. You can hang out during our watch party for our pregame show, and you can tailgate flipping some burgers, cooking some steaks. And right now, with this exclusive offer, you can get $35 off at omahasteaks.com by using our promo code 49ers at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Enjoy grass-fed, grain-finished, extra-aged USDA-certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, and more game day favorites like wings, deli-style franks and brats, and Philly cheesesteaks as well. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety. Every bite backed by their 100% guarantee. Every steak is perfectly aged to maximize tenderness and hand-cut by master butchers in America's heartland. You know me, I love good eats, and I love taking my nutrition seriously. My freezer is loaded up with Omaha Steaks. And my personal favorite is the filet mignon. It is so tasty. Omaha Steaks has been America's original butcher since 1917. So make game day delicious with the official sponsor of tailgating. Visit omahasteaks.com. Get $35 off using our promo code 49ers at checkout. That is using the promo code 49ers at checkout for $35 off. All right, we move forward here with our preview. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and coming up here on the show, big game in the NFC West between the 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday afternoon. Here are my keys to the game, matchups to watch, what the Niners must do to win, and of course, I'm going to give you my prediction for this ball game as well. And I mentioned it being a huge game in this division, but it also has a lot of NFC playoff implications. And look, I know we're going into Week 10. Playoffs are going to be here before we know it. This NFC is so closely contested, and so a win over the Rams, a sweep over the Rams, could do wonders for the Niners' hopes of winning the division, thus hosting a playoff game, also where they could be positioned in the NFC. And so you look at the NFC West standings here. The Niners might be in third place, but they have the same amount of wins as the Rams and the Seahawks. They win this game here on Sunday, they elevate up to first place in the division. What's also working for San Francisco, they are 3-0 in this division. The Seahawks only 1-1, the Rams 0-1, and the Cardinals 3-5, 0-2 in the NFC West, but did get a quality win over the Dallas Cowboys last week in primetime. And I mentioned that NFC playoff picture. Right now, the Niners are the number 6 seed. You win this game, you can move into a spot where you host that playoff game and you can be a top 4 seed in the NFC. Now, how the Rams stack up on offense and on defense. On offense, led by Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, an improved offensive line in Kyron Williams. They're 8th in points per game at 26.1, 7th in yards per game at 369.9, 7th in yards per play at 5.8, 16th on third down. So sometimes they can struggle to stay on the field and move the chains in that money down area. 39.5% there. In the red zone, they're converting at a pretty good number, 60% for their red zone touchdown scoring percentage. On defense, one of the top units in the NFL, number 2 in points per game allowed at 15.9, number 10 in yards per game at 302.9, 5th in yards per play at 4.7, second best third down defense, second best red zone defense. So in those critical areas, they have thrived this year. How the Niners stack up on both sides of the ball. It's a lot different looking than what the Rams have been able to do this year, but still, San Francisco, despite the margin of victory not being high as far as the scoreboard, they've still been able to churn out 6 wins so far this year going into Week 10. 23rd in points per game at 21.6, 10th in yards per game, so they're moving it at 352.1, 16th in yards per play at 5.4, 3rd on third downs at 47.1%. Could be a huge key in this game. 20th in the red zone at 56.6%. You'd like to see the Niners get better there, but they have been better of late, and they were certainly pretty good. 4-5 against the Giants. On defense, what a job Robert Saleh's done. The big number that matters here, points per game. 20.9 despite all these injuries and all these moving parts. Now, they are giving up 332.5 yards per game. That's 17th, but who cares if you're keeping teams out of the end zone. Yards per play, 5.5, that's 20th. Third downs, 18th, 39.2. Top 10 red zone defense, 53.5%. So they have been the definition so far of a bend but don't break defensive unit. As far as my keys to the game, matchups to watch, if the 49ers can't get a pass rush going in this game, no bueno. It's going to be a long afternoon. Matthew Stafford is in the thick of the MVP race. He's having one of the best years of his career despite him being in his late 30s. He has been awesome this season. He's completing 67.2% of his passes for more than 2,100 yards. Look at the touchdown to interception ratio. I think this is number 1 among all quarterbacks because Jalen Hurts had a bye week last week. Hurts is at 20 total touchdowns to 2 total turnovers. So 21-2 is the touchdown interception ratio for Stafford this year. Yards per attempt at 7.8 and a quarterback rating of 113.2. The fact that the Rams offense has become more balanced has obviously done wonders for Stafford and this overall offensive unit because they're so difficult to defend. And obviously Stafford has a couple of really good weapons on the outside. Puka Nacua, once again, putting up crazy numbers. He's been targeted 73 times this year, and he has caught 61% of those 61 of those targets. That's ridiculous. He has 711 yards, 11.7 yards per catch. I wouldn't say he's like that explosive, but he's so steady, he's so physical and hard to bring down, and he's so consistent. 3 receiving touchdowns as well. Devontae Adams doesn't have the receiving yards that Puka has, but his targets are very similar. 70 targets, 36 catches. I think the biggest difference there and why he doesn't have the hit rate that Puka has, Stafford targets him downfield a little bit more. Adams still has nearly 500 yards, but you see the receiving average at 13.6, and he's been the explosive player, but also on some of those back corner fades and some of those red zone plays and throws. He has those 8 receiving touchdowns this year. The Niners' pass rush rankings this season. Again, if they can't generate a pass rush against Matthew Stafford, it's going to be a long day. They have 11 total sacks this season. That is tied with Brian Burns of the New York Giants. That's tied for 29th. They have 98 total pressures. That's 28th among the 32 teams. Their pressure rate, 29.4%, second to last in the NFL. What can Robert Saleh cook up and draw up? The risk is when you devise and draw up blitzes, sometimes that can burn you on that back end. And if there's one team that can really take advantage of that, it's the Los Angeles Rams. Key to the game number 2. The Rams do have a sneaky good run team. And I really like the balance that the Rams offense possesses, right? You have Matthew Stafford, who can be under center or in the shotgun. You've got 2 really good receiving threats. Jordan Whittington is a pretty good player as well. The tight end production has been pretty good too. Ferguson has been a young player who's made some splash plays so far this season. But running the ball with an improved offensive line also leads to a lot of play action for the Rams. And so they really stretch you thin with the way that they call the offense and what they're able to accomplish. And you think of this Sean McVay high-octane offense as being a pass-happy team, they run it a lot. And like Kyle Shanahan, they're at their best when they can get the ground game going. 132 carries this year for Kyron Williams, 586 yards. That's 11th in the NFL. He's averaging 4.4 yards per tote with 3 rushing touchdowns. Now, a big thing for the Niners this year, and this was their biggest point of emphasis this offseason, it was improving what has been a lackluster run defense. Last year, 29th ranked rushing defense in the NFL. This year, they've been a top 10 unit. Number 6 going into week 10. This is why I wanted them to trade for a pass rusher to improve the pass rush. You're already good against the run, and it just makes the entire defense better. Key to the game number 3. Can the 49ers offense find some balance in this football game? Again, I just alluded to it. In Kyle Shanahan's offense, when you can really get the run game going and establish that, it makes the quarterback's job so much easier. And it makes the Niners as an offensive unit so much more difficult to defend. Even when Jawan Jennings, Kendrick Bourne are your top wide receiver options with no Ricky Pearsall and, of course, no Brandon Ayuk. And it's no accident that this Niners offense has looked its best this year in the 2 games, and only 2 games, where they have found success running the ball, when they've gotten downhill, going less zone, more gap and power scheme. Against Atlanta and New York, that's when the Niners have had success on the ground. Against Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, 39 carries, 174 yards, 4.4 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. Kyle Shanahan, once again against New York, one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL, wanted to get to about that 40 carry mark, and it paid dividends. 159 rushing yards, 4.1 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey, B-Rob against the Giants were really good, and I'd love to find a way for Brian Robinson to get on the field more. Can you do more 2 running back sets? Can you line up Christian McCaffrey in the slot because he's so dangerous there and poses a different threat from the inside wide receiver spot? Brian Robinson is a pretty solid player. The issue, though, with this is it's easier said than done. When the Niners play bad defensive lines and bad defenses, they're fine. But because their offensive line is so mediocre, when they go up against good and stout defensive lines, with their mediocre offensive line, they struggle and they get exposed. Key to the game number 4. The Niners are underdogs for a reason. The Rams giving 4.5 points to the Niners on the betting line. The Niners in week 5, with all those injuries, they are 8.5-point underdogs. Why is that? Because the Rams are a better team. And I would say they're far superior to the Niners. Now, in these divisional games, and with Kyle Shanahan knowing Sean McVay very well, they're often close, and you can see a lot of upsets. But if the Niners mess around, if they turn the ball over a lot, if they don't execute, if they play sloppy, they'll get blown out. So like they did in week 5, in this game in week 10, the Niners need to play a near perfect game. Think about everything that went right for San Francisco back in week 5 on Thursday night. They won 26-23 in overtime. They took that early lead to really establish momentum in the game, and they put pressure on the Rams. And while the Rams came back, that early lead really helped to decide the outcome of the game. Mac Jones had probably his best game of the year, despite him getting bruised up because he was hit so often in that game, and he was already hurt going into it. 33 of 49, 342 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. You got a great game and contributions from Eddie Pinheiro. He was 4 of 4, including a 59-yard kick, and you came through with some really crunch time clutch plays. And you're going to have to do that in this game as well, because this game will be decided on the margins. You had the Alfred Collins punch along the goal line that helped keep the Rams out of the end zone because Kyron Williams was on his way to finding the paint. Probably would have lost the game if that happened. And then in overtime, you got the 4th and 1 stop. So a lot of things went the Niners' way on the road as 8.5-point underdogs in week 5. Going to have to get a repeat of that, or at least close here on Sunday. And then key to the game number 5. And a big matchup to watch, because this is a combination of all that. Attack the Rams' corners. Now, in the passing game for San Francisco, they did not have George Kittle back in week 5. He's going to help out this passing attack a lot, and he really hasn't gotten going on the receiving end yet with Mac Jones at quarterback. They just don't have that same rapport that Brock Purdy and Kittle have. He's going to have a breakout performance at some point. He's also played a huge role in getting this ground game going. Now, obviously, they linked up on that beautiful touchdown connection against the Houston Texans, but if you can utilize George Kittle against this suspect secondary for the Rams, that could be a big key and matchup in this ball game. But this Rams secondary, specifically at corner, as you see here on your screen, it's just not a good unit. Darius Williams, a little bit banged up right now. He's not an elite corner by any means. Emmanuel Forbes, a former first-round pick who is kind of a bust. He's long and lengthy, but that's about it. Kobe Durant plays on the inside. Quentin Lake, they made that trade for Roger McCreary. That makes them better, but it's certainly not a needle mover. So predict the score, Rams-Niners. This is always one of the best rivalries in the National Football League. Predict that score for me down in the comment section. As always, I want you to have a voice on this show. My prediction, I think the Niners lose this game. And I think a big reason they lose is the inability to get a pass rush going against Matthew Stafford. They just don't have a lot of bodies right now. And among the 32 teams in the NFL, their edge rotation is one of the worst in the league. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong with this prediction, but I think the Niners' lack of pass rush hurts them. And it's really hard to repeat the type of performance that we saw from the Niners in week 5, where it was a crazy, fluky game where the ball at times bounced the Niners' favor, and they had to get perfect performances from a lot of other players, like Mac Jones, career game. Kendrick Bourne, career game. Eddie Pinheiro, incredible game. Alfred Collins, legendary play. It's hard for that to repeat and duplicate, especially against a team that's hot, especially against a team that's one of the best in the NFL. So I'm taking the Rams 27-23. We'll see you for our watch party on Sunday afternoon. And if you're watching this early on Thursday, we're going live soon on the San Francisco 49ers Report.